Do you look forward every day? You get up and you're all excited about ministry partner development, fundraising, raising your own support. Is it exciting to you? If it is, maybe you're one of the first that I've talked to, at least. I've dealt with a lot of organizations where they had to raise their own support, and I'd like to talk to you about how to do that more effectively today. How do I deal with fundraising long term? And it's not just ministry partner development, but it's how do I deal with money fundraising from my department or my division, or when I'm managing a department that has to raise its own support. I'd like to talk to you about those kinds of things today. I worked for a number of years with Dr. Ted Engstrom. He was the Executive Vice President of World Vision. And he made the point that has stood with me for 40 years, that every ministry you've got in life is actually a part of, it's a balance between ministry and business. Every business you've got in life is a combination of not only business, but it should be a ministry. So what you're looking at is, how do I keep providing a ministry to people, but how do I watch the money? How do I watch the funding, the financing, so I don't go bankrupt or something? How do I get to the point where I've actually got more money than I need so I can accelerate with that additional capital? How do I get there? That's what I'd like to talk to you about today. I'd like to share with you the key pieces of my thinking, and then we'll go back and spend more time with it. When it's talking about money, the first thing you have to understand is to raise money, to work with your ministry partners is a process that leads to profit. You say, well, Bob, we're a nonprofit organization. Well, yes, I know you are. But it doesn't mean you don't have to make profit. It simply means the difference between a for-profit company and a nonprofit company is what you do with the profit. A for-profit company gives the profit to the owner and to the children of the owner, and the owner decides what happens to that. Whereas the profit in a nonprofit organization goes right back to building that nonprofit organization. But when you've got an income, you've got expenses, and you've got a net profit, that's what you're trying to do, is have more and more money left over when you get your income, when you pay all your expenses, to have more and more money left over so that you can grow the organization. You can try ideas you haven't tried before. You can grow the organization, basically. So another key in this process of moving to profit is actually the list. Your list of who your ministry partners are one of the absolute fundamental keys to all your thinking for the future. Absolutely, one of the absolute keys. And then another absolute key is timing of when you ask for money. So the three things I'd like to talk to you most about today in raising your support or funding your division is, what's the process you use to come to profit? What's the list, and how do you develop your list? And then your timing on asking for money. So that's the basic thing I'd like to cover. So then let's look at the process. What you're going to find in thinking about money is, if you don't think about it clearly, it's extremely difficult. And it's hard to keep generating money. Let me show you the essence of the fundraising process. The first thing you have is income. You have to generate income from somewhere. That's your development department, that's your funding appeals, that's your various things like that. You have to generate income. The second piece is you have to process that money. in some way. That's your administration, that's your receipting, that's that kind of thing. But you have to have both of those pieces in place. If people give you money, but you don't administer it properly, you don't thank them properly, you don't send them a receipt, they won't keep giving you money. The third part of the puzzle, or the process rather, is ministry. What you're doing actually in the field, maybe that no one else can do, no one else is doing, or you're doing better than anyone, or you're doing it in a different location than anyone else is doing it. What is your unique ministry? And I say unique because people like to support something that is unique from what everyone else is doing. And the fourth piece, the fourth and final piece of the puzzle is reporting, where you send a thank you note, you send reports as to what happened and how many lives were changed. When you have your ministry, you basically report what's happening to the ministry. Not only to the partners, the ministry partners, but to administration. You gave me this much money to spend, I spent it. That's the essence of the process you have to keep track of. You just have to keep track of it. And here the income is basically your resources, your development income. The process is operations, administrative services. Was my money processed properly? Your output is your ministry, services, the field. Is there a real need we're actually meeting? And then feedback. You want to see here, nothing motivates income like results. Need doesn't. Often we start with our appeal letters, our communication with, oh, there's a great need. Don't do it that way. Start with, let me share with you some reports on what happened to the money you gave last time. You gave X number of dollars, and because of that, we were able to do this and this and this. We saw these many lives affected, changed, converted, etc. Thank you. The results that we've seen are amazing based on what you've already done. Nothing motivates them to give more than to realize that what they gave in the past helped. Nothing. Not even the need. By the way, let me share with you why people give large donations. But instead of just having me tell it to you, let me show it to you. Let me prove it to you. Get in mind the last time you gave a large gift. May have been a gift of time, may have been a gift of money, may have been $10, which is a large gift for you, it may have been $1 million, which is a large gift for you. The last time you gave a large gift of something to an organization, to a nonprofit organization, get that in mind. Okay, got one? All right. There were three things true of that, the reasons that you gave that gift. Number one is that you knew someone personally in the organization. Number two, you trusted that if I give money, it will be handled properly. There's not going to be embezzlement. They're not going to lose my check. It'll be administered properly. And number three, there was a specific need you were trying to help meet. Correct? I don't know if I've ever asked anyone that. They said, oh no, that wasn't me. I say, if you're going to ask for big money, are you going to ask strangers for it? No, you're going to ask your ministry partners that believe in you. If you don't handle the processing of the gift they've already given in the past properly, are they going to trust you with bigger gifts? And specific needs in ministry, you need to show you need to show needs in ministry. It's important to show what ministry you need. But I probably wouldn't advise you to start there. But when you're going after a large gift, those three things are critical. Now, one of the things I'd encourage you to do is, in your mind, set aside a certain percentage, define a certain percentage of all the money that comes into you or your ministry for communication. And I would suggest that that percentage might be 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% of all the money that comes to you is set aside, not to pay your rent, not to pay your lease, not to pay your car payment, not to provide for your children's education. 10 to 15% of every dollar that comes into you or your department is set aside for communication. It's set aside to provide this information, communicate with these people, process it properly, not to carry out your ministry, but to report back what actually happened last time. For communication, for keeping the fundraising process in place and going properly. It takes some money. You can't say, well, I'm going to do my ministry and I'm going to live in my expenses and give, a tenth of a percent to keeping it going. It doesn't work. So you've got to raise not only what you need for your personal expense, but you've got to raise a little more than that to keep this system going. Now, one of the things that I'd like to show you is this. If you have a lot of emphasis on income, raising money, a lot on process, and a lot on ministry, but no feedback, or just tiny little feedback, you know what's going to happen? Every piece will shrink to the smallest piece. If you don't feedback what's happening, eventually this will shrink, and pretty soon it'll be that big. It'll be the size of that. If you don't have money coming in, eventually that will shrink to the size of this. And if you don't have income coming in, or the ability to process it, eventually your ministry will shrink to the size of that. No matter which of those boxes is small, if you have a small resource box, you don't have any money coming in, you haven't got very much process, and your ministry can't be large. Every single time, your entire ministry will shrink to the smallest box. That's why it's important to keep this entire process in place. You have to keep reporting. If you don't, people will stop giving. They'll just stop giving. Therefore, there's nothing to process, and therefore you're going to limit your ministry. If your ministry is not happening, you haven't got anything to report. And so all of a sudden, if you're not reporting anything, if you're not doing anything, people are going to stop giving. So what you have to do is keep this process in place to keep a healthy funding system. That make sense? Okay. I've told you results are the key. Over here, ministry results are the key to funding. Nothing motivates like results. But I'd also like to share with you a concept, particularly for your large donors. One of the things I tell large donors, I have a large donor that I don't know how much he gives away, $2, $3, $4 million a year some years. But he said to me, Bob, I'm very generous. I like giving money. But he said, I'm sick and tired of being asked for money. I'm sick and tired of it. He said, someone comes to my office, he said, I'm a generous person that hates to see people come because I'm sick and tired of being asked by 50 people. I said, what you want to do is define what are the 3 or 4 or 5 ministries you enjoy the most, you believe in the most, you trust the most. What are those, say, 5 ministries that you believe in and trust the very most in your lifetime? Then basically make a list of those. And then ask yourself, of every dollar that comes in, or every dollar that I want to take out, what percentage would I want to go to Evangelism Explosion? What percentage would I want to go to here, 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 and here? Everyone else that asks, I'm sorry, my giving is all committed for the year. Tell 45 people, 45 ministries, your giving is all committed. They say, well, would you come and sponsor a table? I'm sorry, it wouldn't pay you because my giving is all done. I don't have, my budget is all gone. And then whatever dollars come in that you're planning to send out, divide that by 20% or 10% or whatever, and just send a check, even though they didn't ask for it, just send a check to them. I have another client who is a recipient of that. One day he got $78,304.27 or some number like that. from this person who had just taken X% of what he was going to give, sent it to him as a check. Consider, if you've got a donor that is very wealthy, giving to you faithfully, and you sense you're one of the top 5, consider running that logic past them, because you may find that they give you a lot more based on a percentage of whatever they're going to give. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Ted Engstrom, who I think I mentioned to you was the president of Youth for Christ, executive vice president of World Vision, etc. I asked him one day, I said, Ted, he's raised, at that time they were raising $350 million a year for World Vision. I said, Ted, what is the absolute bottom line on fundraising? He said, the list. He said, if you got the right list, you got everything. If you haven't got the right list, you haven't got anything. Now think for a minute with me. Let's say you had 2 people that are donors over here, and they're very sort of poor people, and they can give you $10 a month. But you're only a list of 2 people. What's your capacity here? Very limited. But let's say you've got 20,000 people here that they've been with you for 10 years, they're strong financially, etc. Now what's your capacity here? Much stronger. Now let me ask you, what if you had 200,000 people here giving to you regularly? What's your capacity here? I'm just saying the list is absolutely critical. Protect your list at all times. Don't ever lose track of that. Because everyone you meet that seems very interested and committed to your ministry and want to be on your list, protect that. Feed them. Keep reporting to them. Let them know what's going on, etc. The list is absolutely critical. You're building trust for the organization, or you'll run out of gifts. Another thing Ted taught me was the longer you're in business, the longer you're in ministry, the easier it is to stay in ministry. Don't forget that one. The longer you have of developing this list, the longer it is to keep going. When you're starting, it's hard. When you're starting to raise your own, develop your own ministry partners, it's hard at first. But when you've been in there for 20 years, it's a lot easier. So just understand, it keeps getting easier. It's never easy, but it keeps getting easier. And then the ask, the timing of the ask is really important. It makes a real difference. It's like, how many hot dogs are you going to sell the day after the Super Bowl? Not many. I talked with a ministry leader one day, and he said, Bob, you know how I decide what appeal goes out? I said, how? He said, what's happening in the USA Today? He said, what I do is I look at the USA Today, see what's hot in the world, and we're all over the world. So he said, I look at what's happening somewhere, and then my appeal that month is for what we're doing there. You may not be able to do that, but what is the time of the month that's best to send your appeal or to communicate with people? Timing of your ask is actually very important. Now, as we take a deep breath and look at the funding process, don't forget this right here. And now you've got insight into not only the process of ministry, but the importance of getting profit from your ministry that you put back into the ministry. And you've got this process that can help you in raising money for the rest of your life. And not only you, but you can help the people that look to you for leadership to understand this process. And understand that whenever your funding is low, you're struggling to find money, etc. The insight into this process right here is available to help you rethink it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for the rest of your life.